The honourable member for St. Michael South.
Good afternoon, Honourable Speaker. Good afternoon to the members in this distinguished chamber. I rise this afternoon to do three things. I want to thank the people who are responsible for my being here. I want to speak to this budget that I completely and totally support, and then very quickly talk a little bit about the blue economy that I have the honor to be the minister for. First, let me thank those who are responsible for my being here. I want to thank God, as I always do. I want to thank the Honorable Prime Minister who introduced me to the people of St. Michael South. And I want to thank the people of St. Michael South who have elected me to be their duly constituted representative for the next 5 years. And it is in that context, sir, on St. Michael South that I wish to begin. I made a promise when I started my process that I would completely, first of all, remain true to the people of St. Michael South. And the reality is that in the last 5 to 10 years, the name Baylan and Brittensill and Charleston and Braffis Gap and Paddock Road were never mentioned in this chamber. And that I intend to mention those places all the time as I represent the people who chose me to be here. So it is with that in mind, sir, that I am speaking to the member for Christchurch West firstly, to say thank you, because I know you will attend to the flooding that we experienced in Paddock and in Browns and in Clarks and other parts of the Baylan and in Brittensill. It is with that in mind that I want to speak to the member for St. Michael South East, because I know together we will develop programs in fisheries and so on to help the young people in the Baylan and in Brittensill. I want to speak to the member for St. Michael East. As Minister for the Environment, I know together we will work to clean up this country, and definitely so for the people of St. Michael South. I want to speak also to the member for St. Thomas. And
please don't forget the term honourable, sir.
The honourable member for St. Thomas. Honourable by any stretch of the imagination, always. But I know together, ma'am, we will bring a voice for the voiceless through the people's assemblies that you have the honour to lead. And the honourable member for St. George South, who will also be responsible for creating the trust loans and bringing empowerment to people, sir, who need to be empowered in this country to make sure that small business people have a place and a role in the new Barbados that the Barbados Labour Party intends to create. But, sir, I listened this morning to the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, and I agreed and disagreed at the same time with some of the things that were raised. And before I speak to the budget, let me say I agree that the last administration, having raised $22 billion, did nothing to bolster the economic and productive capacity of this country and did little in the social sector. But that this government, this new Barbados Labour Party government, will never make the mistake that the old government made, and that we will make a priority the social services sector, as you have already seen, that even in the face of the challenging economic times, the budget is filled with a lot of goodies for persons who are living below the poverty line and find themselves in stringent circumstances. I also wish to agree and disagree with the idea that Barbados, that I believe too in the strength of our democracy. I do. But I believe having won a mandate as large as ours has been the practice in our party, the honourable member will recall, that we allow disagreement, but we do not stand for disengagement. And though I have disagreed several times with other members on my side, we will continue to practice the democracy that is known to be associated with the Barbados Labour Party government. So the people of Barbados can rest assured that this democracy is as healthy now as it has ever been. I recognize the challenge faced by the Honourable Prime Minister. I do not know one in public life as prudent as the Honourable Prime Minister is. And to come to deliver a mini-budget at a time when circumstances are as they are, must have been tough by any measure. I recognize the balancing that took place within the budget. The idea that we have at the same time to raise taxes, but to look after those who are marginalized and those who feel as if they're not part of the development process in Barbados. But there have been 4 words that I've heard her use constantly since we came to office. Promise made, promise kept. And that shall be the philosophy that guides this Labour Party. The things we said we were going to do, we will do, but in a manner that promotes this country and does not hurt the most vulnerable while doing so. I also recognize that there are some people, having looked at these social media pages, there are some people who find themselves, not a lot, but some, a little bit frustrated with the idea that a new government should introduce the taxes that we had to introduce. And I think that their discontent in many ways is legitimate. Although I believe that the target is the wrong target. It's not the Barbados Labour Party government that brought this country to its knees. It has been the last administration that has done everything possible to ensure that Barbadians could not have a proper standard of living. And it is the Barbados Labour Party that is seeking to correct it. And I know as well that it is difficult and that there are some things that we have to do. I have a constituent, he broke his hand about a year ago. I talked about him during the campaign. And he now has to have his hand fixed. And I've been trying to have it done at the hospital, but I will have to speak to the minister. But I found that it has been very difficult for him. So through a private doctor, we are now having conversations. But the private doctor has said to him, look, your hand is healing, but it's healing badly. I will have to break it over. I have to take a piece of you from somewhere else to replace this part, and then give your hand time to heal. And he said, well, I understand. It's not you, doctor. It's not you, doctor, who caused me to be injured in the first place. And I understand that you now have to do what it is that you have to do. And I think, in large measure, that is the way Barbadians approach life. That we have been a dignified people is known. And that we will take when we trust our government is known. And I think they recognize that there's some things that we have to do to move some things from other places to heal. And that we may have to re-break the bone so that the island and the country could heal properly. But I think they recognize that we are doing so for the interests of the people. And that the interests of the people remain our primary concern. I, sir, have been a public servant most of my life. I joined the public service when I was 21 years old. I spent 18 years as a public servant. I am very happy today that even though circumstances are as they are, that this government has brought a 5% wage increase for the public servants of this country because they deserve it. And I want to thank them because by and large they have held strain and they have kept the faith. And you will recall, because it wasn't so long ago, sir, that a message was sent from the former Prime Minister through an emissary of sorts to the people in the trade union movement that there will be no conversation whatsoever about a pay raise. And that this government, as the first order of business, has sought to give the public servants a raise fills my heart, and I'm sure it fills their heart too, with joy. And I am also aware that there are some people who were somewhat concerned about the fact that we've had to put in place measures to ensure that we could fix the sewage system. And in total, some say it comes to $45 or so a month, $1.50 a day. Around $45, $47 a month. Compare $45 a month to not being able to educate your children at the university. To having, as I have had to experience in my constituency, young children waiting for hours at the bus stop, not being able to get a bus. The indignity of Barbadians having to drive through sewage on the south coast. And walk through, of course. The indignity of Barbadians having to go into the yard to use a toilet. And I am very thankful that in this budget we have sought to address not one, but all of those things. So, sir, I am very, very, very thankful. And I believe that the honourable member for the city, because I'm informed that there's a list of all the persons who currently have pit toilets, and the honourable Prime Minister, when we get around to that conversation, will ensure that the members in St. Michael South who now have to use a pit toilet no longer have to do so. And in fact, there are several houses, as you drive along Dayton and other areas, that may not look so from the front. I'm sure many others experience it too. It may not look to you as if these people are using pit toilets, but that they have pit toilets. I am aware of an elderly woman who went to use the toilet in the night and fell. I am aware, I have a constituent who has a disabled child, that he must lift into the bathroom to use, into the yard to use the toilet. And he tells me when it rains, the toilet floods and it floods his entire yard, and that he can't use it. So there are things that Barbadians shouldn't have to be dealing with in a 2018 Barbados, when I agree with the leader of the opposition that this last administration raised the largest amount of tax revenue of any government. So we intend, sir, as a matter of priority, to fix a lot of those things. So while I am on my feet, I also wish to address the idea of the blue economy, because I am the minister, and the one question that I've been asked more than any is, what is the blue economy? What is your job? My daughter, joking to me, told me that my job now is to clean the beaches. It's part of it. But I think all of Barbados has to make Barbados cleaner than Barbados is. And in fact, I look forward to when the honourable member for St. Michael East speaks, when he speaks about the cleanup that we will be bringing to Barbados, because Barbados should remain the cleanest place in the Caribbean. But you are aware, sir, the last poverty study showed that almost 1 in 5 Barbadians are living below the poverty line. You would also realize, sir, that in Barbados there are very few people who are now entering new and emerging sectors that are doing well. And that in some cases what we need to do as a government is not to try to duplicate what is being done or reinvent the wheel, but to facilitate business in Barbados, not only for those who already have, but for those who don't have. Not only for businesses that already are in existence, but for businesses that we can't even begin as we stand here now to conceptualize. Because a new Barbados must have a new way of doing business and include new people. And I say all that as a precursor to talking about the blue economy, because I believe, sir, we have an opportunity before us if we were to do what it is that we are supposed to do. And in a quick definition, according to the World Bank, is that it's anything comprising a range of economic sectors and related policies that together determine the use of oceanic resources and to make sure that they are sustainable. So it's about the sustainable use of the ocean, to ensure that we protect the sea, basically, while we try to make some kind of economic activity and revenue from the sea. And I believe that we can do so. And I know most of you, many of us who obviously have constituencies that involve the coast, will see what is already happening on many of our beaches. In many cases, there's not as much beach in Barbados beach space as there was years ago. The sea is encroaching. And a lot of that is due to the fact that the coral reef is dying. The reef is dying. A lot of it is due to larger issues of climate change that impact on Barbados that in the last 10 years we have chosen not to respond to. There are many things that are happening that are affecting the world, and many things that are now affecting the Caribbean, and many things that are affecting Barbados that relate to the sea, but yet we have not been able or have chosen not to address them. And so, sir, I propose that we need to have a development strategy in large measure that involves the blue economy. I know my colleague minister for St. James Central, the honourable member, and I have already had conversation about it. And I'm sure as we spread out, it's going to become a part of how we bring Barbados out of the economic doldrums that Barbados now currently finds itself. As a matter of fact, you will recall, sir, that CDB, the Caribbean Development Bank, just last week or week before held a whole week of activities around how to finance the blue economy. And they made the suggestion that there is now a new space, a new area for growth, and that there are so many possibilities. So when people speak of the blue economy, sir, the one word that I want people to walk away with thinking is possibility. And that this Barbados Labour Party intends to exploit all of those possibilities, to give the average Barbadian a chance at making something of themselves, because the last administration failed desperately to do so. So we are talking not only about protecting the reefs, we are talking as well about food security. We are talking about reducing our dependence on fossil fuels. We are talking about not only using traditional methods of fishing, but creating new methods for fishing. We are talking also about new ideas for the port, and there's got to be a time when we have a conversation around the functioning of the Barbados port to make it much more efficient than it currently is. And sir, we intend to have that conversation very, very soon. So yes, we have to be strict guardians of our heritage. There are things in the past that we've done. I remember as a boy when the fisherman passed through, he was saying, fish, $5 for flying fish. You could get a flying fish for 20 cents. When last you see a flying fish for 20 cents? Because the reality is you don't longer get that quantity of flying fish. And there's a reason for that, sir. It is not just happening. A lot of our fishing and fisheries, sir, a lot of the things that we came up with as boys knowing, and young ladies and girls, knowing as the way, sir, a lot of these fish are dying. Or the resources dying out. And a lot of that's because in some cases we've overfished. In many ways the technology has changed and we haven't kept pace with the changes in technology. I am told that there are some fishermen who still don't have the requisite technology to be able to follow the fish. I mean, there are a number of things. We've seen recently the impact of the sargassum seaweed. And a number of the fish that used to come to Barbados find it difficult to survive with the weed. And we also know that there are some people who continue to overfish. And so we're seeing dolphins now that are being caught very, very young and very, very small. And if you catch a young dolphin, what you've done, sir, is to prevent that dolphin from growing up and having a whole set of other dolphins. So at some point, again, we may have to have legislation to prevent people from overfishing, to make sure that we safeguard Barbados, not for this generation, but for generations to come. So, sir, while we have to be strict guardians of our heritage, I know also that we have to be firm craftsmen of our fate. And I recall the Right Honourable Prime Minister for Grenada, Keith Mitchell. He said that we cannot wait for technology handouts, things for people to come and give the Caribbean so that the Caribbean can then make the most of the way things are. We have, sir, as a matter of priority, to use the resources that currently exist in this country to make life better for people who live in this country. And that has to be the way of this Barbados Labour Party, to use the resources in this country to make life better for all who live or choose to live in this country. And those who may live overseas, who have a relationship with this country and are allowed to be part of this country too. Because that is the way of the future for Barbados. And so, sir, I have had over the last few weeks conversations with persons who've been using the sargassum seaweed to do amazing things. There are people who are already converting the sargassum seaweed into methane gas and using it to fuel their cars in Barbados. People who are using it for fertilizer. There are people who are using it for all kinds of things. There have also been people and who've been so innovative that they're using the River Tamarind to make methane gas. Sir, if we are able to produce enough of this gas, we will then immediately reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and immediately reduce the bills that we have in terms of how much foreign exchange we're spending. And I'm sure the Honourable Member for St. Michael North East and the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central will be more than pleased to see us reduce our foreign exchange spending. But sir, there are a number of things, and I think if there's anything that we have to do, It is to believe again in ourselves. And that a lot of the challenges that we are having as a country, things that are simple, how you going to fix the road, how you going to do these things that Barbadians have always done, is because in the last 10 years, Barbadians have been separated from their capacity to dream and to believe in themselves. And if this Barbados Labour Party does anything, it must be that we restore the faith that Barbadians have had not only in the government, but the faith Barbadians have in themselves. That is critical. And there are going to be, of course, a number of challenges. I mean, you don't just change an economy or a mindset overnight. But if there's one thing I know is that we can no longer operate in silos. And you would see so far, sir, that whenever there is a meeting, there is representation across the board from the various ministers. It is something that I hope continues. That all of us meet around the table to discuss matters that are important to all of us. Because traditionally in government, what happens is that a minister then becomes caught up only with his little space, and they start operating in little silos. But if we want to tackle the development problems that face Barbados, sir, we have to do so as a government. Because there is only one government and there is only one Barbados. And so in my ministry, you would find that whenever I'm having a meeting, I bring everybody. Because when we start talking about the blue economy, I'm not going to talk about the blue economy for coastal zone and the blue economy for the port and the blue economy for fisheries. There is only one. And so that has to be the way we address a lot of our challenges. And I know that our fiscal space, sir, is tight. I know that we currently don't have a lot of resources. But I believe, sir, the way to tackle this is through partnerships. We have to have new creative partnerships now with the private sector. We have to start working with our partners in the private sector. In fact, even though I hadn't called for it at the time, there were a number of people in the private sector, sir, who reached out to me and said, Minister Humphrey, how can I help you tackle this sargassum problem? There have been people of all kinds who have been working with the ministry to address the sargassum problem. And I don't intend to call any names, but there is a man in the constituency, I think it's Christchurch South, who's been doing wonderful work cleaning Miami Beach by himself. And there are things that we could do as a country, sir, to make sure that we make Barbados better for all Barbadians. So when I say to you, sir, that I think of the blue economy, and the word that comes to mind is this one word, possibility, I do not say so without adequate thought. There are so many things that we can do to make Barbados a better place for all Barbadians. And I do not think it's not been the Barbados Labour Party way. In fact, it's not really been the Barbadian way at all to allow any challenges to prevent us from making the most of the opportunities that present themselves. And so, sir, as we try to tackle the issues, we have to do so reflecting and engaging at the same time. We have to be in the action and out of the action at the same time. The Prime Minister makes it clear that there are some mission-critical issues that we have to address, but at the same time we have to be moving forward on our transformational policies. But that's the only way, to be thinking about things and doing things at the same time to make Barbados better for all. And so, sir, as I close, I want to read a poem by Frank Collymore. I nearly say Frank Collymore. By Frank Collymore. And I do so, sir, because, I mean, I do like poetry, but I do so, sir, because I believe he captures what it is that we can do with the sea. It is called A Hymn to the Sea. Like all who live on small islands, I must always be remembering the sea. Being always cognizant of her presence, viewing her through apertures in the foliage, hearing when the wind is from the south, her music and smelling, the warm rankness of her tasting and feeling her kisses on bright sun-bathed days. Sir, we must always be remembering the sea. And so for many Barbadians who haven't taken the opportunity to learn to swim, in this budget we are offering, and in our manifesto, the possibility of people having a relationship with the sea. But beyond that, sir, I believe that the fortunes of our countries is now tied to us being able to make better use of the resource that God has given us. And so, sir, as I close, I want to thank the honorable members in this chamber not only for listening to me, but for taking my many calls and emails over the next coming months as we form relationships to make sure, sir, that we are able to make the most of the sea. And also, sir, because when I return, perhaps in a year or so, with the number of programs and policies that we intend to do, that I believe will bring some economic benefit to this country, you will see, sir, that even though I stand here now speaking about a blue economy that for many is a novel idea, that Barbadians will come to appreciate, sir, that there is so much to be done with the ocean and that there's so much we can do if we continue to do it together. Thank you, sir. I am obliged.